Welcome to the Teen Life Podcast, where we research teen culture so you can focus on connection. Hello and welcome back. My name is Tobin, and I'm once again joined by Karlie and Caleb for another week of Teen Life. We are going to talk today about fake social media accounts, satire accounts, so a little bit of double whammy there, and then how can we help teens go deeper in their faith. So we're going to finish with that one today, but let's start with fake social media accounts. So I don't know. I feel like this has been a problem for a long time.
It has.
Yeah.
I definitely think they're getting better at it. But when have y'all been possibly duped by a fake social media account? I got a great example, but I'm gonna let y'all go first.
I don't know if I've necessarily been duped. I think like for whatever reason, it's like I think I've seen, like, I even watched a video on this yesterday. Like Facebook especially right now has a problem where they just like will post like AI generated art or just like AI generated like anything. And you'll like look at the comments and like there's like some really weird ones where I think like the AI is like learning the things that get the most views, because it's like AI generated Jesus on a log, like with holding another version of himself. It's super weird, but like then you'll look at the comments like amen, amen, and they'll all be saying the same stuff. So I'm convinced that this AI is running this thing that's like somebody like set up to get views, and then is interacting with other AI in the comments. It's crazy. It's truly a weird world that we live in. Like I'm like, these aren't like, what's going on? Surely these people don't exist. So I don't know. That's my experience with all the fake social media accounts.
I think too, this is a different direction as well, but there's so many fake accounts for schools now that like have no name behind it, but a local school used to have one around here that was they would post pictures of anyone sleeping on campus. And like, which like sometimes it's
so
funny,
much.
but sometimes it's like, oh great, like my face just popped up on someone's. But there are also like more bully type ones of like smash or pass, and they'll post pictures and people will comment smash or pass. And so like these fake Instagram accounts that no one puts their name behind, it's really difficult to get them taken down. And even if you do, they'll just go create another one. But it's almost like burn book type stuff. If you're, if you remember Mean Girls, fake accounts that. Ugh.
I get burned by this at least once a year with like NBA Twitter, because like there's this guy named Woj that writes for ESPN, and he's like the guy. Him and Shams are the two guys that break all the NBA stuff. And every once in a while, there'll be a guy that's like his Twitter handle will be like Woj like X1Z or whatever, and I don't really look closely, and then he'll post some massive like, the Mavericks just traded Luka Doncic for a bag of peanuts, and I like lose my mind, like what? And then I'm like, oh, it's a fake account. So at least once a year that happens to me.
Oh, no.
I mean, I've said for a long time that social media is bad. Facebook's bad, so maybe we should just not use it. But it's definitely something to keep an eye out for if you are using social media for really anything. But like make sure that we're not like, because like the especially with this particular case that I got duped on, like people were just retweeting that and just it was just getting blown up, and like that one was funny and it's not serious and whatever, but if there is something that's being passed around and you don't see that it's serious, like it's real, just like kind of like keep that in mind before you reshare things, whatever it may be. But just be on the lookout, because like I think especially since Twitter has become X, the amount of like, it used to be the verified check was pretty legitimate, and if there was a verified check, you could pretty much agree that was a verified real account. That is now not the case anymore. Now anybody who pays $8 can be a verified person. So if someone really wants to go onto Twitter and create a I don't know, Texas University like Twitter account and then put a blue check by it, they can do that. And so just kind of keep that in your mind of when we are using social media for information or sharing it, like just making sure that we know what's behind it for sure.
That's what I know. This is a big thing when there are maybe snow days that people will create fake school accounts and it'll be like one off, and they'll post like no school tomorrow, and people will repost it and get all excited. Or this is also a problem on Instagram with like giveaways. Like if you register or like put in for a giveaway, and then someone will create a fake account that's very similar to that, and they will message and be like, send me your bank info and you won, send me your bank info and I'll put it, and it's fake. They're, as you're saying, not real. And so look into that. We talked about kind of digital responsibility a couple weeks ago, a few episodes ago. Make sure you're having these conversations with your students about, like Tobin is saying, double checking before you post, but also on the end, like that I was talking about, make sure that they're not making these fake accounts to bully others, to make
that's
fun of
also
others.
true.
It's just really easy to create accounts now and not have a name behind it. And that can be really damaging, even if they think it's something funny and innocent, like a kid sleeping, but you post the wrong picture of the wrong kid, and that could turn into a really big thing.
The big thing right now with a lot of schools isn't necessarily fake ones, but they'll have like school bar stools, even for like the high school, which is just
scary.
It's just kind of like a whole page run by somebody who you don't know, and it's not pretending to be the school, but it's just like this page where they post, where they're roasting people, roasting other schools, roasting students that go to the school. And so, I mean, that's even a subculture of schools right now that's kind of ugly, and people just trying to be funny, but all of a sudden that can flip on a dime to just really hit a nerve with the kid. So
okay, so similar but also a little different are satire accounts. Do y'all ever see these? Do you get these on your feed? You know what I'm talking about?
All the time. It's really annoying.
Yeah,
I hate that. I hate them, but yes, I see them all the time.
So first of all, I looked up the definition of satire last night because I think people use that term wrong. It's not just comedy, but it is like using things to poke fun at people. And on TikTok, this is all over, but you get it on Instagram a lot too. But they are real people, and most of the time they use sometimes their real name, but they will post these videos that are fake, that are exaggerated, that are poking fun at people simply to get more views. And it works. That's the scary thing. Like I wish I could go find like some good examples, but
I have a couple like that
Okay.
that I follow and I enjoy, because there's this account that makes fun of like two subsects of these guys. So there's one that's like kind of the alpha podcast guy, and he's kind of like, will go into the gym and be like, hey, I went into the gym today and the lady at the front desk told me I have a good workout. Like, no. And I got mad at her because like, no, I shouldn't have a good workout. I scream at her like, it should be the most miserable 30 seconds of my life, like 30 minutes of my life, because I'm pushing my body to the brink. And like, he's like making fun of it. And like, it's a video of like him pulling like a dishwasher or like a washing machine on like chains. Like it's meant to be a joke, but people interact with it and they're like, this guy, like, what is, like, he's crazy, like, you're so rude to that lady. It's just going over their head on like he's making fun of someone else, but people think it's real. It's so good.
Well, and that's what I feel like the ones that I get tend to be more on mom talk. So I don't know exactly what your teenagers are saying, but these outrageous stories of like, I'm raising money because I left my baby's dad. You'll never believe what he did. He loaded the dishwasher wrong, and they'll go off. And then there are these people in the comments who are like, you're an awful person. How dare you? He doesn't deserve you. Like, or you don't deserve him, all this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, it's fake. Like, if you go actually look at her account, it says satire account. She is like happily married, like, but people will say these awful things. But what they don't realize is when you go into the comments and do that, they're getting more views, they're getting more likes, they're getting more comments, they're getting exactly what they want. But similar to what we just talked about, make sure that you're like actually looking into this of like, is this something real before you get up in arms about something that's a person poking fun. There was another popular like Utah mom that she used to post videos with friends who were twins and be like, my twin girls, and they're like the same age. And the arguments that people would get into in the comments about how are you old enough to have these children? Like, how old were you? And I'm like sitting there going, y'all don't understand. You're playing right into her hand.
Yep.
Yes. But these are a big one. Make sure you just bring it up to your student. Like, hey, do you ever see these that like most of them are pretty obvious that they're not real, but some of them are not. Some of them will say satire account or they'll hashtag satire in the description, but not all of them do. So
And I mean, it's
maybe,
also getting harder to detect. I mean, people will pull
yes.
clips like, that same account I follow had one where he's like on a podcast and they took clips from like the Joe Rogan podcast. And it's like he's responding to Joe Rogan. And so then people will be like then jumping on like Joe Rogan responding to him, even though he never said any of this to this person because they just took his clips out of context. And it says hashtag satire on there, I think. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's easy to, when you're scrolling, because there's just such different media there of like
Mhm.
you're seeing stories that are real and that are cool and interesting. Then you're scrolling and you're seeing people satire, and so you're kind of having to gear shift, and sometimes it can be hard to catch up to that shift of, oh, this person's joking.
Right.
So
But do your research before you really start, maybe before you like repost and are like, can you believe this person? Because it might not be real.
might not be real. Then right now we're gonna kind of switch directions into a question that we've got, just about how can I help teens go deeper in their faith? And as a student minister, I think I kind of get paid for it, but it's not necessarily an easy question to answer. And I think for me, it's ultimately, as a student minister, my job is to get these students to take ownership of their faith, to make their faith their own, to where it's no longer dependent on a parent, it's no longer dependent on me. Because even talking the last couple of weeks about graduation and seniors, like ultimately they're going to leave the nest, they're going to leave and be on their own. And is the faith, is the foundation that they have built going to be enough? Because ultimately I think it can be hard to grasp, even as parents, even as mentors, that the foundation that you might have laid yourself for them isn't going to be enough most of the time. It's going to be a foundation that they lay themselves. And so I think even just for where I am right now, I just did a whole school year series on spiritual practices, where we just kind of spent a week, or on some of them multiple weeks, to kind of talk about it, and then gave them an opportunity to actually practice it. Because the thing is, whenever you're looking for a relationship with God, it's not like some secret potion. It's not going to be like, hey, this one thing will fix your relationship with God. Because everybody is so different. Everybody connects with God so differently. Like some people, like love worship, and that's the way that they connect. And other people are like, no, I'm just singing. I would love to get into the word and dive and dissect everything in there. So everybody's different. You just have to find the way, I feel like, that you connect with the most. And so just some ideas, some of the spiritual practices we went over is like journaling. This is the one that we started with, and gave each of our students a journal, and then wrote in them, and then we gave them journal props throughout the week and even throughout the year. But it's just something that, even if it's not a prayer journal, not a gratitude journal, you can do so much with it. Like Tobin, I know, had talked about like last week, doing a gratitude journal. It can even just be like, here was my day. I think so much of teenagers, you're not processing it. You're not processing, life's coming at you a million miles an hour, and you're just going through it, and kind of call it autopilot. Because you just, if you've ever driven somewhere, like to school or like to church, a place you go often, and you get there and you're like, I don't know how I got here. Like,
I don't remember that drive.
it's almost scary, because it's like I could have hit someone and I don't think I would have noticed, because you just zone out. And I feel like so often that's how we're going through life. And so even just creating time and space to process, here's what I'm feeling, here are the things even going on in my life, can help you catch up, can help you see God in ways that you might not have.
Well,
Worship.
I think too, with journaling, whether it's a prayer journal or not, when you're journaling and you write things down, and then you can go back and go, man, that's something I was struggling with, and look at what the Lord did through that. And seeing that all written down, or I know some people who they write prayer requests or things that they're praying about, and then they'll actually go back and be like, hey, this was answered in this way here. And kind of giving that tangible way of like, that was something I was worried about. And now 6 months later, I shouldn't have been worried about that because
Mhm.
God had it taken care of. And so sometimes seeing it laid out like that is really helpful, like you were saying, Caleb.
I feel like even using journal, like again, know your skills, know what you like to do. If you like to draw, like use that journaling as a time to draw.
Mhm.
Write an entry, write a prayer, and then draw something that goes along with it. And just to take the time to slow down to experience God. I think even like small things that you think of frequently, like worship, doesn't necessarily even have to be corporate worship. You can just in the car throw it on. Put Taylor Swift on pause for just one car ride. Not saying you have to like hey, I'm only gonna listen to KLTY. Like, no. But like, if you're like, okay, I'm just gonna create time and just hear what maybe
Mhm.
God's gonna talk to me, and I love worship, just put it on for like 5 minutes. Rest is a big one. Listen, you can find God in a nap. I've been known to wake up refreshed. I'm like, man, that was a God-given nap. And sometimes it's about it being intentional with it. And I'm just gonna kind of rapid fire, like fasting. I'll tell teenagers you don't need to be fasting from food. You're going like a million miles an hour. Like your body needs the
Mm.
nutrients and the
Mm.
energy. Maybe fast from sodas, maybe fast from social media, video games, right? And the trick there is thinking of like anytime I think or want to do that, maybe focus on God.
I was talking to someone the other day that what gave this up for Lent, which
Mhm.
is like that intentional time of year where
Yeah.
you do that. But she gave up buying anything, like ordering things online. So obviously not like food, but like she for that time period didn't order things on Amazon, didn't buy new clothes, didn't buy new shoes. And I was like, "Oh, should I do that?" Like,
Mhm.
and so I think sometimes the fasting is not like you're saying just food, but
Right.
giving up something that you do often. And then anytime you reach for that, being intentional about that too.
Yeah.
Right.
And going back quickly, Caleb, to the rest too, me and Josh had this conversation recently of Sabbath is a commandment in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is the one thing that we do horribly in our culture
Horribly.
these days.
Yeah.
There is
Horribly.
never any rest. And I think you can start small. It doesn't have to be a whole day of rest, but
Yeah.
maybe you start with an hour that you put the phone down, you do something intentional, and then you go to an afternoon, or then you can kind of stretch that out. But like you're saying, that the importance of rest is a big
Yeah.
deal.
And like it's so hard to be present even with like friends, much less God, whenever you're
Mhm.
so tired. And like what
Mhm.
I tell my students is like if every time that you spend with God feels like homework or you do whenever your cup's empty, you're then going to associate that and your relationship with that feeling of tired and feeling of like I have nothing else left to
Mm.
give. And so you want to come out of a place in all of your relationships from a full cup, from feeling rested, and that's just a time to do it. But yeah, we're so
Yeah.
bad at it.
Well, I think that one thing that somebody told me when I was younger was like, yes, we need to meet God, like, and we need to stop and settle down and meet Him, but also bringing Him into the things that you're already doing
Yeah,
can help you yearn for those times to sit and rest and journal, whatever those things. But
Mhm.
like, if you bring Him into what you're already doing on top of, whatever it may be, like that kind of, it's almost like you're easing into a more healthy time with him whenever you do stop and like,
yeah,
okay, hey, I brought him into this thing I do, and I'm seeing a difference. Maybe what would happen if I actually stopped down and gave him all my time?
Mm.
yeah,
Because that's like Karlie said, that's what he asked us to do. I'm horrible at it. I'm awful at it. And so, Caleb, you kind of mentioned this, but going back to a couple weeks ago, we talked about the Kaizen challenge. Like it all goes back to creating a habit. If you create
yeah,
the habit and you stick to it, I mean, that's why fasting is so maybe not beneficial. It's so impactful
yeah,
because you are creating a habit that you may not necessarily want to, but it also it if you pray or do whatever you may do in that time of fasting, it trains you to feel that way past the fast. And so
right.
there's a reason why we see that in countless scriptures and countless times in the Bible as well. And so
But I think even with that point of trying to implement God and be intentional, like in every aspect. Like that's the thing, like, you know, whenever talking about spiritual practice, whenever talking about like taking ownership of your faith and spending time with them, I think there's even ways that you have never even thought of that you can just make shifts to make intentional. Like even fellowship and time with friends, like even if you take some time to even catch up to say, hey, here's what's going on, you know, or even being intentional and creating accountability in your friendships. One big thing that's super fun is like celebration goes along with that. Like anytime something goes good in a friend's life, anytime there's like a win that God has done something good in your life, celebrate. And even create a habit like with your friends of like, hey, we're going to throw a party because God moved in this big way. And it helps you see all of even the little things that he's there for. Like it makes you so aware, and it's fun. Like it's the big thing. It doesn't have to feel draining. It doesn't have to feel like homework. Some other ones like silence is a big one. Cause like for me, I've noticed like anytime I pray, it's like a one-sided conversation. All right. Like if I'm talking to Karlie, and I say what I want to say and then just immediately ask her a question and then turn around and leave, like that's not fair. And so just creating time and silence for God to also respond to what you're asking of him, to what you're saying to him, is just something, a habit that is hard, a habit that I've tried to do. And like putting your phone away and like 5 minutes feels like 30 in those moments, but just asking like, hey, I'm here to listen. So, it's huge.
One tip for that, the car can be an easy place to do that. I think, like, especially for teenagers, if you live in a house with other people, it's hard to find even at home a place where you can actually sit and be quiet. But maybe if you're in the car by yourself, just turn the radio off for a little bit and sit in silence, pray, and then listen for the Lord to speak.
Just some other quick fire ones are like lament and you know, being able to, you know, question God to get mad at him, and that can be a whole other thing. But some stuff you probably heard of like service, reading your Bible, and prayer are all still so important, and you can find ways to make those interesting. Like read the Message. I know it's like you're like, well, it's not like a real translation. If the Bible's confusing to you and you read a passage that's like, I have no idea what that said, switch over to the Message and it puts it in a way that you might understand better. Like that's fine.
And you can copy and paste it in Speechify and have Snoop Dogg read it to you. So
that's true. That's true too.
That's so great.
I mean, listen, if you're a parent listening or a mentor that maybe is getting frustrated or struggling with this, like it's also important to remind yourself, like, where were you when you were 17 with your faith? Like one of the most important things about my faith was I had to kind of find it as an adult, like you know, me being going to college and being an adult and not having my parents walk me through, hey, it's Sunday, we got to go to church, or hey, it's Wednesday, go to church. That was an important part of my journey of choosing that. And so like we, like I said at the top, each person is different. Some people need to find this on their own. Now I'm not saying we shouldn't teach them ways to do this well, but just remember that you can, you know, we talk a lot about in teen life groups about how we plant seeds that we never see the fruits of. Like this is the same kind of thing. Like you might plant a seed for this and then not see it, you know, bear fruit for years. And so just remind yourself that, hey, when you're a teenager, this stuff is like, it's different. And like, I would venture to say most people in this situation, they get intense about it because they didn't have a good grasp on it as a teenager, but there's a reason for that. So just give your, like we talk all the time, give yourself some patience and grace of, hey, this isn't always going to click right away. And sometimes it will, and that's great. But just being there for them when they're ready for it, or being there when they have questions is a really important part of this as well.
Yeah.
And like we always say too, like, don't forget, like, being a teenager is hard. Being a teenager in faith is even harder because of the culture that we're in. And above all else, they are not a problem to be solved. So just be there for them when they need you. So we thank you for your time today, and thank you for listening to the Teen Life Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on all the platforms, and we'll see you again next week.